Hello and welcome to Diamonds and Duds.
I'm Charles Baker.
I am Ivan Baker. We're brothers.
Yes, we are.
This is a podcast. We'll watch sci-fi stuff that we haven't seen before. We'll critically review it. Critically is probably a little strong of a word.
We'll review it.
We'll review it. Look for some humor in it. Look for some fun in it, and then we'll give it a rating there at the end. We don't necessarily always look for good stuff. We'll look for good stuff, bad stuff, whatever we're interested in watching at the time.
Yep, hence the Diamonds or the Duds. And if you listen to us, make sure to follow us on Facebook, X, YouTube. We are also now on the TikTok and Blue Sky, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully set up the Blue Sky. I set up the Blue Sky, and then it's like, hey, verify your email. And I'm like, yeah, that's what Charles does. And then I forgot to tell you.
Oh, yeah. So we will be on Blue Sky.
Well, we have the Blue Sky account, like, reserved, but I don't think it lets us post.
Gotcha.
Because basically Blue Sky is like Twitter, except currently people don't hate each other.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah. It's not just a cesspool of, like, all the different... We don't get into political stuff on here. But, like, it's like... X is just all the different political sides just screaming at each other and... Yeah.
And ads.
And porn.
Yes,
lots of porn.
Yes.
Ever since...
Elon Musk bought it.
Since Elon Musk bought it, it's suddenly lots of porn.
Yes.
So what we're watching today, what we watched for today is Godzilla Minus One.
Yep, Godzilla Minus One. So this one came out in 2023, I believe. This is the gripping tale of. This is Netflix's description, by the way. This gripping tale of veterans fighting to protect a war-torn Japan from a nuclear supercharged Godzilla won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I purposely didn't look up a lot of that stuff because I didn't want to accidentally find out anything about it. This was something that when I was looking at the Rotten Tomato score, I was expecting it to be. But I looked up the Rotten Tomato score beforehand, and I was expecting it to be kind of high. I wasn't expecting it to be this high. It was 99% by critics and 98% by fans. And so. It was directed by Takashi Yamasaki. And all I'll say, I didn't recognize a lot of his prior stuff, but I'm going to be very interested in anything this person does.
Agreed. This is the 37th film in the Godzilla franchise overall. It's Toho's It's the 33rd Toho Godzilla film, and the 5th installment of the Reiwa era. Now, the Reiwa era, it's not like a connected universe. Basically, what this era, they got a group of people together because Godzilla is just very important from a cultural standpoint to the Japanese people, and it's a group of people basically that are making sure that the character, the property of Godzilla is treated honorably and is not taken advantage of. So it's not like, oh, we're mapping out some storyline the right way. It's just making sure that certain rules are followed. Specifically, Godzilla cannot permanently die. Godzilla, you can't have him. He can't do certain types of destruction. He can't There's got to be a reason. There's got to be reasoning. It's not just him just seeking out kids and stuff like that. You know. So they just have a certain set thing to follow in that era. It's the first one, fifth one in that.
And so this one kicks off, and it doesn't tell you what year it is right away, but you can tell instantly it's probably the World War II time frame, which they confirm later. Yeah. Starts with the World War II era plane landing on an island. Now, I will say what did you say it won the Oscar for?
Best visual effects.
Okay.
And I will tell you right now, I personally, I can't claim to have been an expert in all the movies from 2023. I will say it was probably about 10 Oscar wins short.
That's exactly where I was going, because one of the first things. Now I don't have a background in film or anything like that, but one of the first things I noticed was the camera work, because as the plane landed, they kind of subtly zoomed in on the bomb on the plane as it was coming in.
Yeah. And then just one thing. This is on Netflix. Might be on other places as well. But I know on Netflix, you can either choose to go with, because this is a Japanese film, you can either choose to go dubbed or Japanese with subtitles. I went about 98% of it was Japanese with subtitles for me.
Okay.
I dabbled in the dub just because I hadn't watched a dub movie since I think like Rumble in the Bronx. I will say like the quality of dubbing seems to have gotten way better over the years.
It has, and I'll flat out say this isn't a Netflix thing; it's an Ivan thing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I could do the subtitles.
Yeah.
I did the dub.
Yeah,
and so and it's something I wasn't paying attention, and by the time back in the day, the dub would take me out of it. It did not take me out.
No,
of it
for the
whatsoever.
few minutes I was watching, I ended up switching to subtitles simply because as I was really getting into the movie, I wanted to see. Just what that would do to like my perception of like the lead actor's performance.
Oh, yeah.
Which we'll get to. But that's kind of why. But yeah, so whatever floats your boat when you're watching this, either one works.
Yep, and so it kicks off with and now one of the things I tend to give people nicknames as I'm watching this, and so throughout most of this, I'll be referring to him as Pilot.
Oh, okay. I gave him a nickname. I'm gonna a nickname that I wrote down for most of this. I will wait. I'll reveal the nickname in just a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, it's clearly military base. It's a repair. It's basically a mechanics base where they're fixing kamikaze planes.
Yes, and for those of you who are listening who maybe don't know, you can go ahead and look up kamikaze. Basically, it's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's planes that were meant to be their own bomb, and
it's supposed to kill. And
the pilot is going to die. Is basically the thought of the.
Japan used a lot of these. Japan as in like the government and the military. They didn't really have a very high. Respect for their own people, which is kind of a threat. Which is an actual threat in this movie, and discuss. Like they kind of just treated the people as disposable in a lot of ways. And it does say the year actually. It says 1940.
Yes.
We're at late 1945.
Yep, late 1945. There's a host of mechanics on the island, and it seems clear from what they're saying that we're rapidly approaching the end of World War II.
Yes.
From where they're at.
Yeah, and so the pilot he claimed that he didn't kamikaze because he was having trouble with this fighter, but you learn and find out right away that no, he was kind of a coward, I mean, I'm sorry, not wanting to kamikaze, using the term a little bit somewhat loosely.
Well, yeah, it's something that it's something that in the movie they make a point of delicately bringing out. Yeah. That the mechanic understood 100% why, because even the mechanic's like this is silly. He in not so many words, it sounds like the mechanic was going to say, "Hey, we'll say your plane was busted. This is silly." Yeah. He's like, "There's no point in you doing a kamikaze run when we're going to be losing this war here shortly anyway."
Yeah.
Let me rephrase. Not that there is any way.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of where they were at in the war.
Yeah, and then basically Godzilla shows up right away. There's no burying the lead in this one. We get an attack from Godzilla right off the bat. And what did you think of this Godzilla attack?
I was super excited about it immediately because I've never seen a small, agile Godzilla.
Yeah,
like a Godzilla that was like throwing out kicks and this was a really cool Godzilla.
Yeah, I loved it too. First of all, and I may be wrong, but I think one thing that makes the visual effects even more impressive is I think this is in the grand scale, this is not a high budget movie. This is a lower budget movie, and throughout, I think this is probably the best Godzilla has looked. on screen. Yeah, I love it. It also kind of shows that kind of where in this film where kind of Godzilla comes from, because it's kind of like it's like an agile T-Rex.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and Godzilla, he's much smaller, but Godzilla's weapon. He's destroying the plane, and there's no fighters there. It's just a bunch of mechanics, and they ask the pilot, to help defend them.
Yeah, they asked the pilot to help defend them because Godzilla comes not too long. I don't think it was too long after he landed, and they looked at his plane and such, and so that was probably why they zoomed in on that bomb as the movie was starting, because the way it's set up is that his guns and bomb are right in line with where Godzilla is, and they're like, "Hey, dude, can you just?" Yeah. We're not saying just can you go shoot?
They want him to provide some fire. They want him to fire the plane, but he doesn't, and that kind of that kind of goes to my nickname for him of coward. But then, there's another. It's kind of like there's one mechanic I think who grabbed a small gun and was fighting. I put dumbass shot a pea shirt on him. That's just gonna piss him off.
For those of you who play Call of Duty, I think they all shot Car 98s and Godzilla, and it just I think it just a mild inconvenience that just sort of told Godzilla where they were.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, very nice fight scene. Godzilla maybe smaller, but he can mess shit up.
Yeah,
but I thought it was a great opening scene. Really kind of set the stage. Got our appetites a little bit, just drooling for even more of the Godzilla.
Absolutely, and then as that's happening, it's kind of all happening as night's closing. The pilot then wakes up to find out kind of what happened in the wake of everything, which tends to be kind of a theme with him as this goes on, is that he's kind of a coward, but kind of always makes out.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then we advanced time a little bit. We're still in 1945, but now we're in December, and now we're closer to the mainland Japan. The war is over, and our same pilot has now arrived home. He's returned to I think Ginza is the place, and the place is just showing the utter devastation and the aftermath of the bomb, the nuclear bombs.
Yeah,
and the fires that raged after.
The air raids and stuff, because not only the bomb, because obviously the U.S. launched 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, but there was also a host of just bombing Japan regularly also.
Yeah, and so I thought it was really cool to be able to see it kind of from that perspective. Just see the absolute devastation, and we meet one of our female lead, who she just kind of runs just in like a market.
First we meet the other woman.
Oh yes.
First we meet, and one of the things I want to point out too from anybody who listens to us who's not in the U.S. One of the things I found intriguing about this, and I'm not going to down our educational system at all, but here in the U.S. we don't hear about that side of any of that stuff. And so I found that very interesting to see kind of what that. I'm not getting political or anything, but just it was interesting seeing that side of and mentioning because we meet a woman who instantly calls him a coward, which I'm not sure how she knew he was a coward, but
he mentions that he was a kamikaze.
Okay.
Or he was still wearing his uniform. Okay. There was some kind of indication that he was a kamikaze.
She probably knew he was a kamikaze, meaning that if he was a kamikaze who's alive, that meant he didn't do his job.
Yeah.
Is probably what happened. And because as they're going through, they're talking about his parents and her family, and they talk about how whether it was I don't remember if this area got hit by a nuclear blast or if it was just bombing, but they talk about how a lot of children, a lot of families got killed in this.
Yeah, and it's utter ruin. unfortunately, and then kind of it shows like him kind of like in the market, and there's like a woman, running away, young woman running away with a baby. She gives him the baby, and like I don't think we ever found out what she was running from.
No, I don't think we found out what she was running from. I'm assuming because she was being chased by soldiers or something. Given the time, my guess is that she probably stole some food or something like that, and
and so basically, like she gets right away. She gets the baby back, and then they meet. It's not her baby. We find out that the parents had died, and essentially she took the baby in, and so. They kind of create this kind of like found family kind of thing in the rubble and of everything.
Exactly, and as it kind of has a subtle like planting of a seed again about him kind of being a coward.
Yeah,
because they're like, hey, why is she staying here? And it was like, oh, she just showed up, and it was like, well, why didn't you kick her out? And he was like, how do I do? Not that would have been the right thing, but it underscores the kind of he doesn't have a lot of self-confidence.
No, and one also the thing shows like just in terms of this, and then it kind of progresses, advances time again until March of 1946. One thing that show is kind of as Ivan said. Generally speaking, you don't get a lot of this history, this side of history. Basically, essentially, you have to take a Japanese history class in college, which I actually in my last semester I actually did.
Oh, that's cool.
It was really cool. I just needed a bunch of 300 credits, and I did a bunch.
Yeah, you might as well do something.
Did a bunch of history.
Yeah, you might as well do something.
But like. It's one thing that's not talked about enough is just how, because in the aftermath of World War II, Japan was just an utter waste, but just how quickly the country rebounded in terms of the amount of rubble that it was left in, to where how quickly they became a world power in terms of technology and stuff and all kinds of stuff. And so I think one of the threads one of the themes of this movie is really the resiliency of the Japanese people of this time, how just not giving up, because they were obviously they were on the wrong side, but that wasn't the people, that was the government, the military. And like the Japanese people, like the cult, it's not a Western culture. It's collectivistic. The group before the individual. So like as hard as it might be for us to speak out against a government, it's like at the time it was like nearly impossible, because like you were brought up to do whatever the group said. Yeah,
and that's what I loved about this movie so much, was that. They very easily could have gone the way of, I forget when it came out, but was Aaron Johnson's Godzilla with Bryan Cranston. They could have gone that route and had it be like, because I enjoyed that movie. It was kind of a summer block, but this is not a summer blockbuster. No. This is meant to be kind of more subtle. And it kind of really it spends a lot of time developing this side of things.
Yes, and that's one that it's smart for them. You get that taste of Godzilla, right away, because then now we develop those characters. We see this found family growing again in March. The kid starts growing. The kid's now obviously healthy. He gets a job. Working basically all the basically it looks like a crew of 4 people. They are helping to basically clear out some of the mines that were put in the ocean to make it safe for they're going out in wooden boats trying to get rid of these mines, make it safe for metal ships.
I specifically wrote this down because this is another piece, and as I'm saying this, it might just be me being naive and not remembering but this is also something I don't remember being taught. I was curious how much of this was based on actual history and how much they had to send people out literally to just go blow up mines in the ocean. And
Yeah, because what a lot of people may not realize, especially because the same was not done with Germany or Italy, as opposed to what it was done with Japan, is Japan was forced to disband their military completely. Okay, so Japan had, and I might be wrong, I think to this day, Japan doesn't have a military. They have a defense force, and like basically in certain things, the U.S. is responsible for defending, and the UN maybe is responsible for defending. But like Japan at this point still may not have a technically have military. But yeah, so they had to completely disband their entire military. In the aftermath, they had to give up all ships, all planes, all everything. One of the rules of their surrender was they are no longer allowed to have a military like ever again.
Yeah, and I did remember, but also they allude to this a few times later as they're kind of, we'll get to it, but as they kind of have some of their plans for Godzilla, they kind of talk about.
They kind of run into a lot of that stuff, yeah. And so we kind of see them out. We see them out there. We get to meet another one of the major characters in the movie. His name is Noda, if I say it correctly. He's the weapons designer. He's the doc, the guy with the glass.
Oh, yeah.
The guy with the glasses. There's in that group. There's another younger kid. I don't think his name is more. He was too young to be in the war and kind of fantasizes, idolizes the war. He's just. I think none of the other three were. None of the other three. And then there's our coward, the doc, who's the weapons designer, and then a guy's just kind of more the captain guy. The young kid's more, he's just more oh shucks, I wish I would have been in the war, and our lead character, obviously not having that because he and this is where by now I had turned it to. Subtitles because I really want to catch because the lead actor does a fantastic job of portraying PTSD. Throughout the course of this movie, he does a fantastic job, and he should have been nominated for an Oscar, and he really should.
There's a few different things I think, and. I'm way too lazy to have gone and looked to see what was nominated, but I thought he should have been nominated for that. I thought it should have gotten nominated for cinematography for sure, and I think the director should have been nominated without a doubt.
Yeah,
and I think the fact that it did get some and win, I think it's a testament to it because. The Oscars a lot of times have a lot of politics, and when I say politics, I don't mean Democrat, Republican. I'm not talking about... It has a lot of, the fact that a Godzilla movie won an Academy Award is a big thing.
Yes.
It's as dumb as it sounds, where the best movies should win, it's like... If you're, for example, if you're a first-time actor... They're like, oh, well, you're not going to get an Academy Award win. This is your first win. You need to get 3 or 4 nominations. It happened with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes,
where he probably should have won for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, but they're like,
that's when his career peaked.
Yeah, it's like he probably should have won for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, but they're like, oh, he'll have more. Let's give it to somebody else. But his subsequent times he was nominated, his roles weren't as good as that. So then they also said, "Oh, well, this isn't his best role. We can't give him a win for Catch Me If You Can when he was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape." And the same thing happened to Martin Scorsese. I just say that I get off on a tangent, but to say the fact that a Godzilla movie got an Oscar win whatsoever is an amazing thing.
It really is. It really is. I agree completely. And so, in this little scene, there's no basically what it is. They just go out there and they show basically a little interaction between these characters. The young ones a little bit basically says something I wish the war was still going on so I can, and it just really pisses off our lead character again, former soldier.
And I think that also
PTSD,
because I think it's PTSD, but it also subtly has a point of what was happening in the war versus what the government was portraying was happening in the war. Because there was no YouTube or TikTok or anything of that stuff, or even really news media over there to portray realistically what was happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's what that younger kid here portrays, is that, hey, I wish it was still going on because it looks like it was really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, and so, and also, this scene also goes to will show us that our lead actor is a very good shot, because it shows, young kid can't hit a broadside of a barn when he's trying to shoot the mine, but our guy, is able to get it without firing too much shots
from a crazy long distance.
Yeah. So then we have another time passes, a little montage, and then we're now exactly a year later after that, and that's I think our final time passing. We're in March of 1947.
Okay.
And at this point, you've seen they built a nice little home.
Yeah, they built a nice life for each other, for themselves.
Yeah, and one thing, and I do think this is kind of more. It's this home is built. It's in an exact spot where we first see him, and Sumiko just reads him read him the riot act about being a coward. I think it's very intentional to see that this home was built out of the rubble, out of the ruins.
Built out of the stuff that the other one was destroyed from. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was really. So I thought that was really good. She just got she just got a job, and actually, she is in Ginza. Okay, I'm not sure her job is in Ginza. I mentioned Ginza earlier.
Yeah,
that's where she's going to be That's where she's going to be taking the train, bus train.
And one of the first things, and because I think this is the pilot asking partly for the audience there. So it's well, if you're going to be working, what's going to happen with? I think it's Kiro is the baby.
Yeah.
And so the first woman that kind of berates him for being a coward mentions that she would be more than happy to be watching. Yeah. So I think they mentioned earlier on that her children actually died.
Yes, all three of them. All three of them, I think. And Sumiko, and she's actually she's still living nearby, nearby, and so they've actually become. It seems like they've become friends.
They've become friends, and I think this also goes to what Charles was alluding to at the beginning of this, where he talked about how. What was amazing about the Japanese people at that time is how quickly they grew out of that rubble.
Yeah.
And quite literally in some cases. But I think part of what they're alluding to it here is because everybody works together.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so we also see he's still uncomfortable in his role. He, tells the little girl that he's not his dad. The coworkers are kind of really what the hell, dude? Trevor wrote down
that was kind of messed up.
And so and him and the girl, they're not together. And so he's still definitely getting uncomfortable, and it's also clear he's clearly struggling with his PTSD.
PTSD, because he feels like if he hadn't been a coward, and we're only saying that as an easy way to remember the characters we're talking about. Yeah. He wasn't actually a coward for anything, but he feels that he was, and if he wasn't, those mechanics on that island at the beginning would be alive because he could have killed Godzilla.
Which, just one thing we didn't mention, but will be important later on. He was not the only survivor of the mechanic thing. That lead mechanic guy that he had talked to, he also survived. And he has the same opinion of the lead actor as the lead actor has of himself. He made it very clear that he thought it was his fault.
Yeah.
So just mention, because that will come back later. And it's at this point in the movie that the idea Godzilla is now re-entering.
Godzilla is now re-entering stuff. And I wrote down that there was a news report saying that the U.S. won't help.
Yeah, that they can't basically because at this time the U.S. is basically if you didn't know it, the U.S. is gonna basically it's us, it's us or you're screwed.
Yeah. And they also talk about how it's the U.S. Soviet Union stuff is starting to raise up, and so they can't be seen having a bunch of ships approaching anywhere near there. And so it goes to the point where I believe they're out doing their mine stuff, and there's two different.
Well, they get sent out specific because
they
get sent out in their wooden boats to search. Like basically just search for Godzilla because there's
the other than our main character, the rest of them don't really know what they're searching for.
No, they've just gotten. There's just been news reports of a giant creature in the ocean that has done some damage, and so like they sent out these two boats. There's supposed to be a tether in between them that they're going to check it out. I wrote down like I bet Godzilla's a lot bigger now.
Yeah, and I also wrote down at this point his shipmates find out that he was a kamikaze pilot in the war.
And I put not having a military really puts them in a bind in this situation where they're sending out a wooden boat with basically in terms of Godzilla a pea shooter gun and there's not really a whole lot. They give him the wooden boat has two big old mines essentially, and that's pretty much all they have.
And they kind of drop the first one out and shoot it, and it kind of blows up near Godzilla, and Godzilla just sort of laughs at it.
Yeah, and so basically what their job is, there is like a boat called the Takeo that's supposed to be coming, and basically they're supposed to if Godzilla comes, to keep Godzilla occupied and not not until the Takeo comes. And again, the youngins we got this, we got. Meanwhile, the guy that's seen Godzilla before is like, no, we need to get out of here now. I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with the coward this time.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like, it's the kind of thing where if you're watching a horror movie, and let's say you're watching a Friday the 13th movie, and they tell, okay, the cops are coming. High school kids, if Jason comes, we're going to need you to run in a circle till the cops get here.
Yeah.
is basically what is. And I say that being silly, but also that's about all all Japan could do.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about all. And so one of the things I thought was also a nice touch, and is all the dead fish. Yeah. That were all just died as a result of being near the radiation of Godzilla. It
was a good subtle way to kind of have the radiation thing without beating it.
Yeah,
beating it down.
Which, if you're not kind of familiar with the historical aspects of Godzilla, Godzilla is intrinsically tied to the nuclear.
Yeah.
The movie Godzilla, because King Kong was in the 30s, Godzilla was a little bit later, and one of the things that really in the 50s, Japanese movies, that was one of the first things that really kind of became big after in their rebuild, and Godzilla has always been an allegory for the dangers of nuclear bombs. And messing with nuclear weapons, as they obviously had 2 bombs dropped in there. So Godzilla's always been directly tied to nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
And so we see, and yes, Godzilla is a lot bigger now.
Godzilla's a lot bigger, and Charles mentioned a little bit ago that part of what they were supposed to do is they had 2 wooden boats, one of our main character and his crew, and another crew, and they kind of had a line between them.
Yeah.
Godzilla eats the shit out of that other boat.
Yeah. And here we have the best line in the movie. And I think it was by the youngin that said this. Actually, let the Takeo handle this one. As soon as Godzilla eats the crap out of the boat, he said, actually let the Takeo. And so some of the stuff they do with Godzilla here is when he's, because Godzilla has his heat ray, radiation ray that he often has. When he starts to activate, build it up, more spikes come out, and he's he kind of turns blue. And one thing, I only caught it kind of later in the movie, but when he does do that, small pieces of Godzilla fall off him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some small pieces of Godzilla are left behind. Little pieces like scales and stuff like that.
Which also I think which I'm sure are radiated themselves.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. This time, though, our lead actor, the coward, he does not fail to fire. He gets on that gun and he starts firing at Godzilla.
Yeah. And so they've already used one of the mines.
Yeah.
They've already used one of the mines, and they have an idea for, as Godzilla's chasing him, to throw the other mine at him into his mouth, and then have the pilot shoot it.
Yeah. And it works very well.
It works extremely well.
Like, part of Godzilla's face came off, which was really cool.
Yes, it was really cool, and then it was also equally cool when his face grew back.
Yes, I was like, oh shit! Godzilla has Wolverine's healing factor. They're fucked. Is what I said. And at that point, we have the Takeo comes.
The Takeo and the wooden ship's like, oh, good.
Yeah. It's like, oh, saved by people with lesser billing.
Yes.
Which one thing I really thought was cooler is, like, right before they dropped the mines, we had a brief moment. It was really cool. I hadn't really seen this in a Godzilla movie where it's like almost like a chase scene, like where this was wooden boats like going, and you see like Godzilla just getting closer and getting closer, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, and I also. Looking back, I'm not surprised at all it won that award for best visual, because then you also have, granted that the Takeo doesn't last very long, but like it has a couple really cool parts.
Yes,
has like the cannons they have on it, because I know they talked about, and obviously this wasn't true in real life, but they make a point also of right before this, when they were talking about the Takeo, and later on, they talk about how they get they're able to kind of annex some ships back.
Yeah.
To help, since the U.S.
They gave him four.
They gave him they gave him 4 and the Takeo.
Yes.
They gave him 4 and the Takeo because they're like, hey, we can't help you, but it's kind of effed up if we don't let you.
Yeah. And so so the Takeo just not like Godzilla gets pissed, and so like he breaks off his attack, but he's also now headed he's headed to the mainland. We get some more stuff afterwards. Again, we have he's still he's now back. He's gotten back to the he's more experiences in his PTSD, but now he lets her and he tells her what happened.
Yeah, and this is also goes more also to real life to mention. I can't think of the right word.
Yeah.
For when you go through something difficult in life, that you do need find somebody to talk stuff through.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they make a point of showing that he instantly feels better.
Yes.
Once he kind of talks through what happened.
Yeah. And so he's starting to, because one of the things, like, you do this in PTSD patients, but, like, he also, like, when he has these nightmares, he has moments where he actually thinks that he did die. And literally, and he thinks that he's in some kind of, hell, some kind of, hell, something like that. But then she goes to work to Ginza. And then soon after that, we get a report that Godzilla is headed to and is going to be attacking Ginza.
Yeah, and one of the things they also mention and I apologize, meant to mention this before they show him getting home. They also make a point also about how the Japanese government does not want to mention anything to their people.
Oh yeah, that's going to be kept a secret. But
it's under the guise of we don't want to scare people.
Yeah.
And
I wrote, like, keeping it a secret is going to bite them in the ass.
Yeah.
And so they show his attack, and again, fantastic effects on the attack. Godzilla is just destroying these buildings. There was a news crew at the top of one of the buildings that's like live reporting, which I'm like, God, that's dedicated journalism right there.
Oh, and I thought one of the cool lines from it, and I didn't write down the exact line, but one of the things the news crew said as Godzilla was destroying a building next to him. XYZ building, they mentioned the actual one.
Yeah.
XYZ building just got destroyed. It's a building that lasted a nuclear bomb but didn't last Godzilla. Yeah, kind of thing. And I thought that was a really cool take.
Yeah, and those journalists did not survive. because Godzilla knocked. But before even they showed that, basically Godzilla had attacked the train that our female.
That was so cool.
Yeah, our female lead was basically. I think she was on her way to work, and like Godzilla, just smashed part of the. He threw a piece of train and it knocks him out. Then he picked up like the car ahead of her.
Yeah,
and was and she was dangling.
She was dangling and hanging on and. Obviously, it was probably green screen and stuff, but like you couldn't tell at all. At least I couldn't.
No,
I couldn't tell whatsoever, and it looked so well done.
Yeah, and she, looks like she found some, some water to fall in, a pond or a pool or something like that, and just like it looks like she's about screwed. But then our hero, definitely no longer a coward. Coach, who's Koshi is his first name. Koshi to the rescue. He becomes a hero. Okay. He kind of saves her for a moment, and then Godzilla's kind of heat ray, like the blast of it, kind of like not the blast, but the aftershock, like the blowing wind. She just flies out of this.
And she basically saves him.
Yeah, she knocks him out of the way.
She knocks him out of the way and saves him.
Yeah, and so and pretty much we don't see her body, but we're left to assume that she's dead.
Yeah, we have to assume because I kind of wrote down, "Hey, pilot's alone again."
Yeah, I put what was that? I put, "Damn, how much more loss can he take?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I also then wrote, "Son of a bitch, this movie is good."
Yeah, that's yeah.
And this is where I also wrote that he was robbed of an Oscar nomination. So, yeah. So okay. So you continue, like I said, I put the lead actor. He's robbed of an Oscar nomination, and so now we're kicked in because then Godzilla destroys the city. He goes off back into the water for the moment, but like people think that Tokyo's gonna be next. Like
exactly. Yeah.
And so now they're putting together. All right, we're gonna figure out how to stop Godzilla. Leading the way is gonna be weapon designer Dr. Glasses.
And it sounds like he's been behind the scenes, been working with the. They make a point a number of times of mentioning this is a civilian group. It's not affiliated with the government, kind of thing.
Yeah, so and I put the dismantling of the military post-World War II makes this battle so much more dire. Like, they have so many, like, whereas, like, you watch, like, the U.S. Series where, like, Godzilla X Kong, Godzilla King of the Monsters, they use crazy science and different, weapons and stuff like that. They don't have any of that.
No, yeah. This is meant to be this is meant to be in, like, mid-1940s.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they come up with a plan. It does revolve around science, and it is kind of an ingenious plan.
It is.
That what they realize is there's a trench, obviously not as deep as the Marianas Trench, but a trench near Japan. They want to lure it to, and they're going to use
bubbles.
They're going to use bubbles and gas basically to surround him in gas, and the gas will pull Godzilla down, which. What their thought is that a normal creature being pulled to that depth that quick would kill anything.
Yeah, exactly. And then so the backup is if that doesn't work, they're then gonna basically release these inflatables that are now all around, but just shoot him back up really quick
at a rapid pace to kind of mess up the decompression
and basically kill him that way. And so, they go over this, and our lead actor is there, and he's listening to it, all that, and there's a bunch of other randos as well. And one thing, a difference between an American movie and this movie, which again a lot of it's about the Brazilians and the Japanese people, is in American movies there's a few people that start to leave. Right? In an American movie, everybody would start to leave until the speech, right?
And then they would make a point of, we're all, yeah.
Yeah, but some people left, but then the people that stayed, a lot of people that did stay, they stayed just because, okay, you know what, there was no speech there, but like, we're going to help, we got to do, it can't be worse than the war that we just finished.
There wasn't like some Arnold Schwarzenegger or what do you call it? Sylvester Stallone's speech.
Yeah.
There wasn't like some rah-rah thing that brought everybody. Yeah. Everybody was like, hey, nobody can do it but us. So
yeah. And so, meanwhile, they need a fighter, like in the air, to kind of distract Godzilla, get him where they want. And so they're going to use fighter pilot. And they found a plane, like a designer plane that wasn't used, but it needs to be fixed. And so our guy decides he's going to track down that mechanic.
Yeah.
That hates him.
That hates him, and also the part of the reason why they have to track him down is because there's not a lot of mechanics left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Partly because of the Godzilla stuff, partly because of the bombings in World War II, but also partly because we're now 2 or 3 years now past World War II, and they weren't allowed to have planes.
Yeah.
And so it's not like they were training new people to do this.
Yeah. And so one thing, again, they're just completely disorganized in terms of, Japan's still in a ruin, basically, so it's really hard to find where people are. And so I thought it was ingenious. So the way that he gets them to come is by sending a bunch of letters to him saying that he thinks it's all the mechanics' fault and all those people died. I thought that was really, 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 really entertaining. Yes. So obviously when the mechanic does find him and starts beating the shit out of him.
Yes. Yeah, it finds him. They reconcile a little bit, especially once the mechanic finds out why. Yeah. He eventually understands. He gets a couple people that they don't really explain, but you don't really need to know who the other mechanics are. Yeah. The other mechanics start working and getting that. They get that plane ready to go for their.
And
fire.
One thing that he's also making clear at this point is our lead actor has a different plan. Our lead actor, he has a plan because he tells the mechanic that he wants a bomb installed because he remembered that getting the blowing up inside of Godzilla's head really, really messed. That was how damage caused. Everything else to the outside wasn't doing anything. So he actually planned on kamikazing himself to kill Godzilla. And we do get they talk a little bit. He's showing him. This is right before they
leave.
Yeah, they kind of show and they do a cutaway where he's like, "I got to show you one more thing,
one last thing,
one last thing." Which the moviegoer in me is like knows exactly what he's gonna show or what and what because we're gonna talk about that. I'm like, okay, the moviegoer is gonna show that he installed an ejector seat. Like you might be like, well, of course it has an ejector seat. Well, they say earlier in the movie that again we talked about how Japan didn't exactly treat its credits.
Japan didn't give a shit about it.
Yeah, like the military, they didn't. There wasn't ejector seats in their plane. The Japanese military wouldn't install them. So like this is like a new thing that he installed in there because like the Japanese military planes, it wasn't something that they put in any of them.
Yeah.
And so And so we see the planet, the planet in action. Godzilla gets sunk into the bottom. It's a really cool, action sequence. We get to have. They left young Buck, behind because
they left young Buck behind because during I forget when. I think it was when he attacked somewhere, the young Buck broke his arm or injured his shoulder or something. Yeah. And it wasn't because he was young Buck anymore. It was because, we only want people here who can help.
Yeah. And so basically they get him down. That doesn't kill him. So they enact the plan to pull him up, but it is not.
They get him up. They get him up about halfway, and then Godzilla's able to to fight back a little bit.
And so Young Buck arrives with a whole bunch of other tugboats, which Young Buck had an idea, hey, why don't we just, pull them up? And people are like, are you insane? You have any idea how many tugboats it would need to pull up a thing of that size? And so he helps get Godzilla to the thing, which, he starts to, be affected. But then his heat ray starts to warm up, and it didn't work.
It didn't work, and he starts powering up, and that's what was important, somatically about that scene before where he fired his heat ray at the Takeo.
Yeah.
And so you start seeing that heat ray powering up, and that's where our pilot comes in.
Yeah, it seems at first like he kamikazed, but then you get the rest of that scene.
Basically, because he flies into his mouth, but isn't there a moment where like everything goes silent?
Yeah.
And I thought that was one of the most amazing things I'd seen on film. Is that they basically take all sound out of the thing whatsoever as he goes in.
Yeah, and so then you see like he ejected out, and they showed basically when the mechanic's like this is ejector scene. Then he's like what? He's like what? He's like no, live. And so he activates it, and Godzilla's head blows all the way off.
And so that kind of wraps up most of the movie. I think a couple things that as we're going there, we see a telegram go. And as he's going, one of the things we kind of glossed over was that woman from the beginning who called our pilot a coward took the kid almost permanently, and the pilot thinks it's probably going to be permanently. Because he wants to make sure that Akira is able to be raised and stuff like that. And you see, she gets a telegram as the thing's starting. The assumption is meant to be, I think, that it's probably something from our pilot, kind of. But what we find out after everything is that our lady who saved him is actually alive.
Yeah, and honestly, what I took away from that, because some people are like, wait, how? It's not about how, like, any logic in terms of how she survived. It's about how in the afterlife, the nuclear bombs and whatnot, who survived and who didn't. And really, it's like that in any war where your own homeland's getting attacked. Is it was utterly random in terms of who survived and who didn't. And I think that's supposed to illustrate that, and also end on some hope.
End on some hope. And it kind of as a triumph for them finally becoming formally a family.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of the way. There is one last little. We go into the ocean, and you just kind of see. It goes back to what Charles was saying in the beginning of the movie, that Godzilla is not allowed to what, Charles? Permanently die.
Yeah. And so you see Godzilla starting to recharge.
Yep, starting to regenerate.
Now, does that mean there's going to be a sequel? I doubt it. This doesn't seem like the kind of movie where there's a direct sequel to it.
No, the next movie will just do Godzilla, however it wants to do. And so, obviously, for me, this is a diamond. This is a 5. This is a diamond and a 5.
This is a diamond and a 5, and this is one of the better movies I've seen in the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic movie. I cannot recommend it enough. You don't have to be a fan of kaiju movies in order to enjoy.
If you're a fan of monster movies and kaiju movies, you're absolutely going to love it. It's going to be one of the better ones you've seen, probably.
Yeah.
But if you don't like action movies and you're like, well, I just like, this is for you too.
Yeah. So, great movie. Next time, what are we going to be reviewing next time?
We're going to be watching Pixels next time. An Adam Sandler movie. We wanted to do something a little bit comedic that somehow neither one of us had seen. We're both video game people, and we've heard this apparently has video games in it.
Yeah, and so Adam Sandler, and because of obviously Adam Sandler, it's going to be on Netflix. It's going to be found on Netflix as well. Don't forget to check us out: Facebook, X, YouTube, soon to be Blue Sky, and the TikTok.
All right, everybody have a good one.
Have a good one.